guys? Welcome back to another episode here at Just Shall View Ministry with Casa Israel Yarah. I appreciate you for being there. So, this week's story portion is Vayishlach. We're going to get started quick, straight to the point. It's going to be a short one. Maybe. I don't know. We're going to try to. Before we do that, let's do a Torah blessing. And we'll get started. Baruch Adonai Haorah, Baruch Adonai Haorah L'olam Ma'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim benatan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Bless Adonai who is blessed. Bless Adonai who is blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the peoples, has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. The green screen. You can't see what I'm doing. So, this week's story portion, like I said, is Vayishlach. It's in chapter 32, starts verse 3. And so, this is picking off of Jacob. He flees Laban. Last week, we didn't get to see a video because I didn't have time to make a video. But Jacob's ladder, then he goes, obviously, to Laban. He gets married to Leah because he's tricked by Laban. Then he marries Rebecca eventually. He has 11 sons, 4 wives. He's fleeing from his brother, and his father is still alive at this point. So there's a lot of chaos going on in the family of Israel right now. And so we're picking off of him, obviously leaving Laban. And Laban is basically made a covenant with him, letting him know that because he couldn't find his figurines, the title of property, he made a covenant basically saying, you don't cross into my land, I don't cross into your land, you don't take my stuff, I don't take your stuff, and we'll keep it there. Obviously, Jacob has no interest in Laban's inheritance because Elohim has promised him something. But Jacob is going to encounter his brother, and so we're going to focus on that, and we open the story portion, and we're going to dive into chapter 34 mainly. So let's get started. So as we story portion, like I said, Vayishlach, Genesis 32 verse 3 to Genesis 36 verse 43. The Haftarah portion, or the portion of the prophets, is Hosea chapter 11 verse 7 to Hosea chapter 12 verse 12, and Abdiah chapter 1 verse 1 to 21, and in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament portion, is Matthew chapter 2 verse 13 to 23. Now, last week's Parashat, told how Jacob escaped his brother Esau's wrath by fleeing to his relatives in Haran. On his way there, God appeared to him in a dream of a ladder reaching from the ground to the sky, with the angels of God climbing up and down. And there renewed the covenant of Abraham with him. However, after arriving in Haran and agreeing to work as Laban's hired hand for 7 years to marry his daughter Rachel, his uncle tricked him into marrying his older daughter Leah first, and then demanded he work 7 more years to earn the right to Rachel's hand. The 2 sisters and their handmaids viewed for Jacob's love by giving birth to his 11 sons and 1 daughter. Meanwhile, Jacob worked another 6 years to earn his own livestock, but finally fled from Laban back to Canaan after living through 20 years of his uncle's oppression. This was last week, and basically Jacob, he's tricked. Laban tricks him 10 times, and obviously Laban is taking advantage of Jacob's blessing because Jacob is chosen. He is the firstborn, dictated by Esau giving him the birthright, then obviously Rebecca basically leading him to trick his father, and eventually he flees. And so he's the firstborn. He's meant to marry Rachel, but in reality, because he is the firstborn goes with the firstborn. In this case, it was Leah, so he was tricked to sleeping with Leah, but obviously it was a plan by his uncle. Now, let's keep reading. So this week's story portion begins with Jacob sending messengers to his estranged brother Esau in the land of Edom in hope of reconciliation, right? So this week's story portion starts with Vayishlach Jacob Malachim Lepana El Esau Achim Arasa Seir Sedai Edom. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. The messengers returned from their meeting with Esau and told Jacob that his twin brother was on his way to meet him with 400 armed men. Jacob became afraid that Esau would try to carry out his previous intentions of killing him, and therefore divided his family and possessions into camps so that one could escape if the other was attacked. So obviously this is from last week's story portion, or 2 weeks ago, where obviously Esau says that he was going to kill Jacob after his father's death. And so now this is the first time that Jacob is going to encounter Esau after he has basically created a whole family, 4 wives, 11 children, and everything that he has was meant for Esau. And so now he's going to confront him, and he's afraid because he sends gifts and messengers on behalf to his brother, and the message that he's received is that he's coming with 400 men. Okay, so he's afraid, he's stressed. Okay, now let's keep reading. We're going to focus on the defilement of Dinah. So this is chapter 34. After setting into the land, Jacob's only daughter Dinah decided that to visit some of the local women, but was abducted and raped by a crown prince of the city. After Jacob and his sons learned of the incident, the prince's father, Hamor, appealed for Dinah's hand in marriage to his son and suggested that Jacob and his families intermarry with their family and enjoy the fruit of the land. A lot is going on, and understanding that there is some type of dysfunctionality in this family, and it's something that we have to understand and maybe relate. As a society, we have dysfunctional families, and just because the biblical narrative has these people chosen doesn't mean that they're perfect, right? That is the message that the biblical story is giving us, and the account is giving us, is us understanding how we learn from these matriarchs and patriarchs and how we evolve and mature and grow. Okay, now a lot has gone on, and so Jacob steals, quote unquote, the blessing and the firstborn rights. He goes to his uncle's land, deceived, comes out with 4 wives, 11 children. Now he encounters his brother, and obviously after they encounter one another, he sends gifts in front of him. He bows 7 times in front of Esau. And if you want to focus on that, watch last year's Torah portion where I talk about a little bit about that. And he basically gives him the share that he had promised to Adonai. He gives it to Esau, but then they part ways. And now we're here. So after he parts ways with his brother goes ahead. Now Jacob says, no, I'll go behind you because I have children and female and cattle and stuff like that. So they will get tired at the speed that you're going. So we will stay behind. And so now they're settling down in the land. And Dinah, the account says that she was raped and was taken advantage of. So we're going to read the Torah portion and see what's going on, what's the purpose, what's the context of the story, okay? Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, who she had born to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he took her and lay with her by force. He was deeply attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this young girl for a wife." Now Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter, but his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Jacob kept silent until they came in. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. Now the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very, very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by laying with Jacob's daughter. For such a thing ought not to be done. But Hamor spoke with them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. Thus you shall live with us, and the land shall be open before you. Live and trade in it, and acquire property in it. Now this is controversial because one, he took advantage of her. Now, there's 2 points that we have to look at. It says that she was roaming in the land to see friends from the land. And so a historical fact of the ancient Near East is that, especially when a woman was a virgin and was taken care of and preserved in her father's house, it was very rare for her to be roaming in the land, right? Two, Israel was not called to intermarry with the nations or with the nations around them based on cultural beliefs and how they will influence their family structure that Abraham was trying to establish through, obviously, Adonai. And so this narrative that she is in the land walking by herself freely can be misinterpreted, or could be interpreted as she was basically in the wrong place and hence at the wrong time. And so there's many speculations about her really not being raped, her being obviously consensual about this. We're not going to get into the speculations. We're just going to focus on what the text says for now and look at the picture that is imprinted, because now, whether consent or no consent, this man is asking for the hand of this woman, and in our culture that is insane. But in their culture, it's normal that this man fulfills this duty to, you have taken advantage of our daughter, you have dishonored my house, and you have profaned her, and now the way that you restore my honor and her purity, in a sense, is you doing what's right and being responsible for her and paying me as the father, in the case, the appropriate payment. So let's keep reading, and we're going to keep getting a little bit into this. Shechem also said to his father and to her brothers, if I find favor in your sight, then I will give whatever you say to me. Ask me ever so much of bridal payment and gift, and I will give according as you say to me. But give me the girl in marriage. But Jacob's sons answered Shechem, his father, Hamor, with deceit, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. They said to them, we cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. Only in this condition will we consent to you, if you become like us, and that every male of you be circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take our daughters for ourselves, and we will live with you and become one people. But if you will not listen to us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughters and go. Now, their words seemed reasonable to Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's sons, right? The young man did not delay to do the thing, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. Now, he was more respected than all the households of his father. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of the city and spoke to the men of their city, saying, these men are friendly with us. Therefore let them live in the land and trade in it. For behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters in marriage and give our daughters to them. Only in this condition will the men consent to us to live with us, to become one people, that every man among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Will not their livestock and their property and all their animals be ours? Not only thus, consent to them, and they will live with us. All who went out of the gate of the city listened to Hamor and to his son Shechem, and every male was circumcised. All who went out of the gate of his city. So now this is obviously was given as a ultimatum that they believed that the people wouldn't do, right? So they basically said, okay, you want our sister, you want our daughters, so you have to circumcise yourself, because based on our community and what our Elohim establishes, every male must be circumcised. And obviously this is in Genesis 17, Elohim commands it to Abraham. On the 8th day, your firstborn or your sons will be circumcised, right? And that is the sign of the covenant. And so they say, okay, so they take it to the gates of the city. Now, understanding the gates of the city is like saying they took it to court, basically, right? The gates of the city were judicial and where basically the news will be broadcasted into the cities. And so it was a judicial move that was made in where the whole city and the whole country itself was aware of the decision that was made for the intermarriage. So now, with this circumcision, even with the rape, remember, culturally, they had brought honor to Jacob and restored Dinah's purity in a sense, or Dinah's honor in that case, right? And they had to pay the proper payment for her for a bride. What happens now is that they are going to enter into a covenant now. So now these people are in covenant with Adonai, right? Because if they're in covenant with Jacob and they circumcise themselves, they are in covenant with the God of Jacob. And so they agreed to the clause, right? So they made a mistake. They say, okay, we made a mistake or not. And now we're willing to do anything to restore it. So they enter into covenant with them. And what happens now is a big no-no, okay? So let's read. Now it came about on the 3rd day when they were in pain that 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brother, each took his sword and came upon the city unaware and killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the edge of the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went forth. Jacob's sons came up with the slain and looted the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds and their donkeys and that which was in the city and that which was in the field. And they captured and looted all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives and even all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me odious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and many men being few in number. They will all gather together against me and attack me, and I will be destroyed, and I and my household. But they said, should he treat our sister as a harlot? Simeon and Levi are angry. It is very understandable. It's like, okay, you have a sister, a young sister, or a daughter that gets taken advantage of, and now all we can do is just basically come into covenant and kumbaya, right? And so understandably, it is not cool what happened, but remember, culturally, the movement and the moves that were made, they basically repented and they came into covenant with Adonai. Now, what they did was they killed them after they were circumcised, and they looted their land and their people. Basically, they did that in representation of Adonai. So they did it out of order, okay? And they did it incorrectly because their misrepresentation of the covenant was portrayed. Now, were they understood to be angry? Of course. It's like, your sister is a valid question. It's like, is our sister supposed to be viewed as a harlot? But the decision that they made was made after they made a covenant and after they basically established Elohim's honor in the middle of everything, right? Because now they were called to guide these people in a sense, or they were called to be in covenant. And so they broke the covenant, and in a sense, Jacob, who represents Adonai, because remember, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob not only carry their names and their family's name, but they carry Adonai's name through all these generations. And so whatever they do reflects on their God. Okay, so the actions that were taken in this Torah portion, in this chapter, were out of order. And so in chapter 35, it turns a little bit, and we're going to close out, okay? And God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and live there and make an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, put away the foreign gods which are among you, and purify yourselves and change your garments, and let us arise and go up to Bethel. And I will make an altar there to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me whenever I have gone So they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods which they had, and the rings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was near Shechem. Story portion is packed with dysfunctional actions, dysfunctional family, a lot of crazy stuff, guys. But understand that through all this, Jacob, as a leader, had a new creation moment in where Elohim blessed them and said, okay, even though you have gone through these stages, even though you have struggled, you have misrepresented me at some points in front of your brother, I will bless you, and I will maintain my word to your father Abraham, Isaac, and you now will represent the fulfillment of the prophecy that I gave to your fathers, and you will represent them as well. And so the opportunity to understand that culturally, the honor and the purity in the story of Dinah, and how that defilement caused chaos, but understanding that you cannot pursue vengeance when repentance is on the table. So that's all I got for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Also, like and subscribe. If you have any questions, also comments or concerns, put them in the comment section down below. And if you have noticed, I have been here with this stain. I was carrying my 2-year-old, 3-month-old, 2-year-old, 3-month. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. I was carrying both. But look, that's what happens when you become a parent. All right. Shavua Tov. Shalom.